The head gravity Tour has been replaced. We now have a brand new head gravity Tour 98. This is a first glimpse. It's not out till January next year, but we have it and we're going to put it through its paces. We have the brand new head Tour 98 Auxetic 2.0.
Yes, a big change from the old Gravity Tour. We've got lots of things that Head have done differently.
To go through those changes, the previous head Tour was a 100 square inch head.
Yep.
305 grams, an 1820 string pattern with a balance point of 320 mil. The new head Tour 98, as the name suggests, we have lost some of that head size. It is reduced from 100 down to 98. We also have lost some strings. We've gone from an 1820 to a 1619. The balance point and the weight have stayed the same. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays differently to the previous version.
Obviously, the previous generation of the Gravity was sold as a racket with a massive sweet spot. You can see it's kind of round, a little bit snowshoe. We didn't care too much for how it looked, the old one, but we did really like how it played. So an interesting change by messing with the formula.
Especially, it was the Gravity Tour that we liked.
Yes.
Out of the whole Gravity range, it was the Tour that was our favourite, that was preferred. The MP always felt a little bit flimsy, a bit underpowered. The Tour was the best one, and that's been the one that we've sold the most of it as well. So a bit high risk from Head to ditch what we think was the best one in the range. There's no longer an option in that 100 square inch head at 305 grams. And replace it with this 98 Tour. So we're expecting big things.
Yes, we strung them both up with Hawk Touch, that is Head's Hawk Touch string, by the same stringer on the same machine. It's just here, just out of shot. You might be able to hear it in the background. And we've strung them both at £50. We're going to go through our usual process of playing some points, going through some drills, plenty of play, and just going to compare the two and see which one we prefer.
We have just come back in from play testing this brand new Head Tour 98. It started raining, so we couldn't do our normal film on the court side as soon as we finished. We've had to come back inside to do it. The Tour 98 was brilliant.
Yes, yeah, really good.
And seeing as that I really liked the previous Head Tour and used it, as soon as we were switching between them, I just found myself wanting the new 98 every time.
Yeah, it's really, when we do these tests and we try out these rackets, normally you don't really mind which one you're using, right? But today really wanted to have this one in my hand. And disappointed every time we had to swap over, which is obviously a very good sign.
Yeah, and to me the overriding factor was the stability of the contact. I just didn't feel like I could get it wrong, and actually it's one of the first times I picked up a racket, gone straight to the back of the court, and we probably had a 40-50 shot rally, didn't miss any. It was almost that you couldn't miss with it. It was, the control element was really high, but it still packed a bit of a punch.
Yeah, and those of you who've seen our videos before will know that we are big fans of Auxetic 2.0.
We are.
We never thought we'd be fans of a graphite material, but here we are, the Auxetic 2.0, and you can really feel it again, can't you? The biggest difference between the old version and the new is that feeling, and it, like Josh said, it just feels solid and controlled and stable, and just generally a really pleasurable experience to play with.
I think you get that from the 98. Generally it's going to feel more together.
Yep.
But obviously in the string pattern opening up would maybe feel less so. So that was kind of the interesting contrast when you've got a 100 square inch head with an 1820 to a 1619 string pattern, but the 98 square inch head, and how those two sort of factor together. The overriding thing was clearly the 98 90 string pattern was better.
But interesting, like they felt kind of similar, but also completely different at the same time. I know it's a completely useless thing to say to everyone.
It is.
Yeah, but it's almost like what Head have done by changing all of these characteristics, they've sort of added with one and taken away with the other, and ended up with something that feels roughly the same, just an improvement of.
So the thing to remember about the Tour 98 in the Tour range and all the head rackets is it kind of sits differently to the rest of the range. So just because this new Tour 98 is really nice, it doesn't mean the rest of the Gravity range will be when the MP and such come out. And there's obviously a Pro, which is back in the 100, but a little bit heavier come. The fact it's a 98 makes it a bit of an outlier. It's like the Boom Pro,
Yes.
and the Speed Pro and the Radical Pro. They're very different to the rest of the inline rackets as they're designed more towards higher level players. I think that's important to bear in mind when we say this is really great. It's for that type of player, and I certainly think it's a control frame. It looks like a control frame. It's definitely a box shape, but it does pack a bit of a punch. I'd say it's control with a side of power.
Yes, and it's one of those rackets that I personally really like, and Josh and Joe are starting to come around a little bit to those rackets that kind of sit a little bit closer to the middle in terms of they're not really powerful, or really controlly, or really spinny. It's a nice all-round good racket that gives you plenty of realistic feedback. It doesn't change your inputs too much, but like Josh said, just a hint of power in there, isn't there?
That's actually an interesting thing that Ben says, and I think that is true. The stability in the feel, it does what you think it's going to do. It does what it should do. If you move your arm fast, the ball goes an appropriate amount faster.
Yes, and this is what we mean by control, is that you know what you're getting, so you are in control of the racket and the ball. For example,
the stability also
yes.
kind of coming to play with that as well.
Yeah. For example, something like a Babolat Pure Drive gives you more power than you put in, and something like an Aero would give you more spin. The Gravity Tour here is going to give you just the right amount. My delightful colleague, not sure that's the word, Josh has had to leave. He's going to go play paddle with Adidas for some reason. Left me to summarise and wrap up this racket for you. The Gravity Tour 98 is a fantastic frame. It's going to be a great racket for anybody who wants a solid, stable control frame with a hint of power. We're looking at people who maybe think the Boom Pro's a bit too much, the Pure Drive 98 is a bit too much, maybe something like the Babolat Pure Strike 1619 is not quite enough. It's going to kind of sit in that blend between control and power frame. It's not going to look like this. This is the seed version. The new one, we have seen it. We can't show it to you yet. The actual version is going to be a little bit sparklier, a little bit starrier. Sounds a little bit childish. It does look very, very nice, and it's going to be fantastic under floodlights. All in all, a fantastic racket. Strongly suggest you give it a try. As usual, thank you very much for watching. If you've got something nice or funny or interesting to say, stick it in the comments below. If you don't, keep it to yourself. We won't reply if we don't like it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.